I arrived here with 16% stated charge, and immediately we were up to like 280, 290. And then I went into the Circle K station, went to the toilet, and when we were out, we were almost at 60% stated charge. That is actually insane. I have never seen or heard of an EV that can charge that fast at that high stated charge.
The Porsche Taycan has never been known for good efficiency or great range, but with this facelifted version, it gets a much bigger battery pack and revised front and rear electric motors for improved efficiency. So today's big question remains, will the Taycan now, with its updates, be able to push above 400 kilometers or more than 250 miles of real-world range going on a motorway at 120 kph or 75 miles an hour? That question we're gonna answer today.
Safety starts with the tire, and that's why I can highly recommend the new studless winter tire from Continental, Viking Contact 8, which is already a test winner. Remember guys, the tire is the only thing keeping your car on the road, and that's why it is so important to have the best possible tire. And that's why I can highly recommend the best, which is this new Viking Contact 8 from Continental. You can also win a set of these Continental Viking Contact 8 studless winter tires if you go to the link in the description box down below and you fill out the form. So a huge thanks to Continental for sponsoring this video and also for making the Viking Contact 8, making our roads safer. Before we set off, I just want to ask you guys a very small favor, and that is subscribing to the channel. More than 80% of you watching aren't actually subscribed, which is insane. Why aren't you subscribed if you're watching my content? So please subscribe, and every subscriber count really helps me because, you know, the more subscribers I get here on the channel, the more access I will get to cars like this Taycan 4S, the more early drives and launches I will be able to go to. Like I was recently in Stuttgart driving the new Macan rear wheel drive and Macan 4S. Those videos will be up on October 15th when the embargo is lifted. But that is thanks to every one of you who is subscribed to the channel. So thanks a lot. And I'm really trying to get to 50,000 subscribers before the end of this month. And we've been growing immensely. So I'm pretty sure we're gonna be able to do that because you guys are completely awesome. But the more subscribers we get, the more launches I'll be able to go to, and I want to go to more launches this year. I want to go to the A6 e-tron launch. I want to go to more launches next year, and that means, well, growing the channel. So again, a huge thanks to every one of you who is subscribed, but yeah, a lot of you still aren't subscribed watching the channel. So please go ahead and hit that button down below. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much. Finally, guys, we are in the new updated and facelifted Porsche Taycan, this time a sedan and the 4S version. So this car has the performance battery pack. So in the sedan and in the Sport Turismo, it comes standard with the non-performance battery pack. I think it's about 83 or 84 kilowatt hours usable. And then you can upgrade to the performance battery pack, which this car has, which is 97 kilowatt hours usable. In the Cross Turismo, that battery pack is standard. So the non-facelifted version, the old version, which is the car I own a Cross Turismo, which I've had for 2.5 years, has an 85 kilowatt hour usable battery pack. So this new one is 12 kilowatt hours bigger. So that should, at least in theory, give this car quite a bit more range. So that's what we're gonna test in today's video. And before I reveal, you know, the consumption after about 20 minutes on the road, I just want to talk about the Taycan, because I've owned a Taycan Cross Turismo for 2.5 years. I've had other cars on order, Volvo EX90, Porsche Macan Turbo, and I've canceled both of those two cars because, in my opinion, you know, after coming home from driving a lot of these new cars, you know, the Polestar 3, the Polestar 4, the Audi Q6 e-tron, the Audi SQ6 e-tron, and a whole bunch of other cars, I come home and I sit in my Porsche Taycan. I'm like, yeah, this is the best car ever. Why would I, you know, spend more money and buy something new that isn't as good as what I already have? And that was my thought about the Macan also, because, you know, I was excited about that car when it came out, but once I saw videos and photos, it seemed like kind of a downgrade compared to the Taycan. And then yesterday, I got to drive the new Macan in Germany. And it is a great car. I really like it, but my impressions after driving that is that it's just not as sharp, it's just not as comfortable, and doesn't feel as special as the Taycan. And you know, that makes sense because it sits quite a bit lower in the Porsche hierarchy. And then I hopped into my Taycan yesterday. Like, I landed and I went out to get some food, you know, late at night, and I'm like, yeah, my thoughts are confirmed. Like, the Taycan, even my car, which is like 2.5 years old, has almost 50,000 kilometers, it just feels more sporty, it feels more comfortable, and it just feels more special. Like, the interior is nicer. Of course, I have the upgraded leathers like this car, but just leather everywhere. It just looks and feels like a very special car. And then you sit low, which just, you know, makes you feel very special, the dash wrapping around you. But these seats, these Porsche sport seats, which are the same seats as I have in my car, are just super comfortable. The seating position is just perfect. You sit low, you know, I prefer sitting in a car which is low, where you have more of a sporty driving position compared to an SUV, which feels like you're sitting on a chair. Like, for me, for longer trips, that's just more comfortable. You just feel more in tune with the car, and that's my impression. So, you know, after driving this Taycan, my Taycan, and 2 Macans yesterday, I don't regret a second not, you know, taking out that order and taking delivery of my Macan Turbo, which I would have had delivered like in about 3 or 4 months. So still a ways out. I would think I would rather go for this, the facelifted Taycan. So we're gonna find out how much range this car has today. That was a little bit of a rant, but I wanted to get that out of the way because maybe a lot of you have been wondering about that. So today's conditions, not the best. We have a little bit of rain, like light drizzle, mostly no rain, and wet and damp roads. It's about 11 degrees Celsius, and we have a tailwind in the northward direction of about 2 meters per second. So after about 20 minutes on the road, our average consumption is 24.4 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers, which isn't the best. And the Taycan isn't the most efficient car, especially this on 21-inch wheels. And one thing, this car is noisy. My Taycan is noisy. I think the new Macan's gonna be noisy when I get on Norwegian roads. And like, I can recommend this car to everybody because I think this is one of the best driving cars ever, but I can't recommend it to, I can't recommend it to everybody, because if you want a very quiet car, the Taycan isn't it. This is noisy, like going 120 kilometers an hour here on the motorway here in Norway, there's a lot of tire noise, but for me, the rest of the car feels so special, and I can live with that. I've been living with it for 2.5 years. Okay guys, we are now approaching our halfway point where we're going to turn around and then go back to where we started. So, you know, today's conditions have actually improved. You can see that it's now dry outside. And let's take a look at our consumption also. 22.1 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. So, I mean, we do have a tailwind of 2 meters per second according to the wind map. So I'm not sure we're going to be able to keep that low of a consumption. But if we are, I think that's going to be actually pretty good. So just take a look at the new setup of the display here. I'm going to talk about this in a review. But yeah, we have all the information we need for trying to push an EV in any of my tests, or if you are an enthusiast. So we're just gonna take a right here, and then we're gonna go under the bridge, and I'm gonna try to show you the screen again so the steering wheel isn't in the way. But take a look at this, guys. So to the left, we have the maximum charging speed at this battery percentage, and we have the battery percentage, and we have the battery temperature. All that information is very, very useful. And then to the right, we have the trip information. I mean, this new setup is great. And also, always, we're driving in the most efficient mode, which is range mode. And today, the AC is set to 20.5 degrees Celsius. I always set the cabin to the most comfortable temperature. You know, in Chinese cars, you often have to run the AC at 24, 25 degrees. At least, you know, it says it's running at that temperature. And then in the German cars, you can run it at like 20, 21, and that's comfortable. So yeah, we're gonna head back now towards where we started, and then once we get there, we're gonna connect to the charger and see what charging speed we get after a few hours on the road with passive heating of the battery, no preconditioning via the navigation system. Okay, we are now at our exit, and as I said just in the last clip, like for me it's been an hour, but for you guys it's just been fade to black and then faded back. We're going to connect to a charger here, to see what charging speed we get after a few hours on the road, only passive heating of the battery. This car does have preconditioning, that's active heating of the battery via the navigation system, but we don't do that in this test. We do that in my long trip test. In this test, it's all about getting that maximum efficiency and getting that most range, because if we navigate it here and the car preconditioned, that's going to use energy to heat up the battery. That's not what we do here. But we also do, as I said, we do the test to see what charging speed we get to test it. It's interesting to see. Maybe you forget to precondition the battery. Maybe you stop before you plan to stop. Maybe you don't even know about the function of preconditioning in an electric car like this. Okay, so before we hop out, let's take a look at the consumption. So after 194 kilometers, our average consumption is 22.5 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. And as I showed you guys earlier, the car's going to tell us what the battery temperature is. It's now 23 degrees Celsius. We're at 42% stated charge. And according to the car, we're going to get 180 kilowatts of peak charging speed. So let's hop out and see if we're going to get that. So the charge port, the DC charge port on the Taycan is here on the passenger side. This car does have an AC charge port on the other side. My private vehicle actually has the manual charge port, which I do prefer. I don't think, this adds much value. It looks fancy, but yeah. So we're now going to connect, and we're at 42% state of charge. And it's going to be interesting to see. I'm pretty sure we're going to get what the car's, predicted, 180 kilowatts. I don't see why we won't get that, but let's see if we get even more. Okay, so after about 20 seconds of initializing, we are now connected, and boom, 181 kilowatts. 182. Will it ramp up? 184. So we're gonna get a little bit more than the car predicted. 185, 186. So I'm pretty sure, as the battery now heats up, when it's taking charge, the speed's gonna, I thought it was gonna go up. It may be. Looks like the car's trying to see how much amperage it can take. But yeah, 187 kilowatts without preconditioning. I don't think that's bad. So I know this car is capable of a lot more than that. I think the peak charging speed is 320 with this new Taycan. But before I started this charging test, I did connect to this charger. I arrived here with 16% stated charge, and immediately we were up to like 280, 290. And then I went into the Circle K station and bought a coffee, went to the toilet, and when we were out, we were almost at 60% stated charge, and the car was charging just below 300 kilowatts. At 58 and 59% stated charge, this car was charging at like 298, 299, which is crazy. So, preconditioning of this battery is essential to have it up to operating temperature. And I know that. I've had a Taycan for 2.5 years, the pre-facelifted version, which will take 270, 275 if the battery is above 30 degrees Celsius. And that is pretty much the case here also. But almost 300 kilowatts at almost 60% stated charge, that is actually insane. I have never seen or heard of an EV that can charge that fast at that high state of charge. Now let's take a look at the results. So we take the usable battery capacity of this Porsche Taycan 4S with the performance battery pack, which is 97 kilowatt hours usable. We take that number, we divide it by the consumption, 22.5 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers, and then to subtract 3% for heat and discharging losses. That gives us a theoretical range under today's conditions of 418 kilometers, which on the surface may not sound impressive compared to a lot of the cars we've tested lately. But again, conditions today, since we are in early fall, not the best. We did have a lot of dry patches today, but mostly we had light showers and it was rainy and we had wet and damp roads. So not the best conditions. And also the temperatures today between 11 and 12 degrees Celsius. So it's starting to get colder outside. And I'm pretty sure if we did this test in 15 to 20 degrees Celsius, dry roads, and those types of conditions with no wind like we had, the other week with the Enyaq and the Q6 e-tron, this car probably would have gotten a kilowatt hour or two lower. And then when we do the calculations, we're looking at much better numbers. But also compared to, for example, those two cars, this is on 21-inch wheels. Really big wheels and tires. I mean, the rears are 305s, and this car's on performance tires. And also talking about performance, this car has 598 horsepower and does 0 to 100 kilometers an hour in 3.7 seconds. This is, by any measure, a low-slung sports and performance car. So I don't think it is completely fair to compare it to other cars which have more efficient setups. Because if we drove this car in those conditions with, for example, 19-inch wheels, I think this car could have maybe even gotten below 20 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. And then we're talking about really good range. And even with today's results, this is one of the best results. I think we're like top 5 of any EV I've tested. So under these conditions, getting those results I think is great. And then charging speed. Yeah, we didn't get the best charging speed now when we didn't precondition the battery. But before I did this test, I was peaking at right below 300 kilowatts. So I can't wait to take this car out on my long trip test, and hopefully we'll have a little bit better conditions, and we'll also have lower average speeds and then lower consumption. So this car may set a record for the long trip test. So guys, let me know what you think about the results of the new facelifted Taycan 4S sedan with the performance battery pack. So I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, please drop me a thumbs up down below. And for more car content, as always, please subscribe. See you guys later and goodbye.